Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Political No-Brainer podcast where we move past winner takes all politics and into real conversation. I'm Jeff Rabinowitz, and this season we're bringing voices from all sides. We're challenging assumptions, we're bridging divides, and we're building a better understanding of today's biggest issues. Today is not actually I am not bringing in guests today. Today is what I call a trip talk. And a trip talk is essentially my acknowledgement of I may never get invited to do a TED talk. So I've decided instead of just waiting around for that invitation, I will do my own talks. I'll do my trip talks. And I encourage you to email me and get me your trip talks. I mean, it's just that simple. Go ahead and set up your iPhone on a tripod and tell us what you're thinking about what's going on today. You know, TED Talks is an acronym for technology, entertainment, and or design. Trip Talks, I am Coach Trippy, but the acronym TRIP is teaching reality, integrity, politics, and politricks. And there's a big difference between politics and politricks. Politricks is essentially our leaders are entrusted to lead us, and they're putting out often false information, false figures. They're entrusted with a lot of money that's paid in taxes. They're entrusted to manage that money, to allocate that money, and there's a lot of fictitious figures out there. There's a lot of fictitious accusations of who's doing what with the money, and we're in a time today where a lot's going on, a lot's changing. And even though, I'm not a fan of what's going on, I also see it as an opportunity. Sometimes they say, if nothing changes, nothing changes. I see an opportunity to grow from this. I don't like what's happening. It's horrifying. It's at times a lot of people are getting hurt. A lot of people are losing their health insurance. Hospitals are closing. Innocent people who have been living here legally in this country are getting deported simply because they're no longer living here legally, and we've got to come to some solutions. But today's topic in particular, today's trip talk in particular, is about the Middle East. And so first, let's start with some fundamentals about the Middle East. For the most part, most Arab regimes have accepted the reality that Israel is there to stay. There is also a reality when there is prospects for peace, as in the leading up to the Camp David Accords. There's a lull in violence. There seems to be a feeling of hope and a feeling of belief that some things are to come together. We've dithered with the idea of a Palestinian state. The world has dithered with the idea of an independent Palestinian state for over 50 years, and it's time we start really putting some things together and getting that done. Um, there's there is also a reality, for the most part, that Israel will never be the biblical restore the biblical kingdom of David, which includes parts of Jordan, the West Bank, and the Golan Heights. The reality is, and it's been agreed on within the Camp David Accords, that for the most part, the West Bank will be where the new Palestinian state will be situated, and that is something we need to move towards happening. But most recently, I found it ironic, um, ridiculous, really. Benjamin Netanyahu, I guess, recommended to the Nobel Peace Prize committee that he nominated, I guess you would say, Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Award. It's just uh, Benjamin Netanyahu nominating somebody to or appointing somebody or recommending somebody for a Nobel Peace Prize is kind of like a fired employee recommending his or her replacement to his employer. I just don't see Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, being the person you really want to take a recommendation for who deserves a Nobel Peace Prize. Moving forward, I want to talk about Iran for a moment. Over the last few years, Iran's military capabilities have been diminished by Israel. Their defense systems were taken out a few years back after Hamas invaded the Gaza Strip. Israel took an aggressive approach towards Hamas and Hezbollah. Then now recently, we've since gone in with our own B-2 bombers and knocked out their three nuclear facilities. For the most part, I believe that is done. The concern now is, And there is no questioning, I'm not questioning the mission, the intent. The question is, Iran probably still has enriched uranium, enough enriched uranium. They were according to actionable intelligence, ushering out enriched uranium out of those facilities. So they probably do have enough enriched uranium to make nuclear bombs. They probably still don't have the technology to put those bombs onto make them warheads and put nuclear warheads onto missiles, but they'll get there. So to think for a minute we are safe from Iran's actions is just not a realistic belief. And but what I'm leading up to is there is an opportunity for peace with Iran. I think there's a realization. Iran will come to the realization it's time to make a deal with the United States and Israel for that matter. And it's something we really need to seize the moment. We can't just assume that we're always going to bomb them into oblivion. They can easily, not necessarily easily, but they can slip one past the goalie and cause a lot of death and destruction. So it's time we start reaching out to them and come to an agreement. That was sort of what Barack Obama did with the agreement he came to with Iran. They were going to denuclearize. They didn't necessarily keep the deal. Donald Trump then abandoned the deal, but now it's time to get back to the table and start realistically working on peace, a peace that will benefit everyone in the region and will benefit the world. Now, what's always been my concern is the reality um, that war is a racket. General Smedley Butler, one of the most decorated Marines back in his time, he wrote a short book and he talked about it. He made it clear it is possibly the oldest, easily the most profitable, surely the most vicious. It is the only one international in scope. It's the only one in which the profits are reckoned in dollars and losses in lives. A racket is best described, I believe, as something that is not what it seems to the majority of the people. Only a small inside group knows what it is about. It is conducted for the benefit of the very few at the expense of the very many. Out of war, a few people make huge fortunes. In World War One, this is again General Smedley Butler, one of the most decorated Marines back in his time, World War One. During World War One, a mere handful garnered the profits of the conflict. At least 21,000 new millionaires and billionaires were made in the United States during the World War. That many admitted their huge blood gains in their income tax returns. How many other war millionaires falsified their tax returns? No one knows. So, war is a racket. We continue to believe often that we are fighting wars for good reason. At times, you may be able to justify that logic, but whenever we think about how far ahead and how we're concerned, how far ahead China has gotten economically, is it possible the U.S. dollar will no longer be the economic measure of the world? Um, and will China suddenly take over? Will that be the premier currency in the world? We've got to take into consideration one simple fact. China has been at peace for the last 50 years, and we've very much been at war for the last 50 years. We have been at war over and over and over again for the last 50 years. And a lot of I don't understand it any longer. Why, there was this feeling during President Trump's first term world conflict was almost at a minimal, was almost non-existent. Now, again, and he was given credit for that. I even said the world's been kind of quiet since he's taken the presidency. But now his second term, is the world's on fire. Um, we've got a situation in Ukraine. We've got a giant situation in the Middle East. People are dying, and it's time we start giving peace a chance. I our diplomats hostage, over 50 of them, and he kept them for over a year. And from then on, Iran has been nothing but trouble, sponsoring terrorism all over the world. Uh, Obviously, the fact that he took our embassy and our diplomats hostage was an extreme situation that we had to take into consideration. They were no longer our ally. And Jimmy Carter, for the most part, negotiated a deal to get the diplomats returned. I believe Ronald Reagan got the credit for the return of the diplomats, but really it was Jimmy Carter that negotiated the deal. They were released after Ronald Reagan was sworn in. So there's some question about were they concerned about what Ronald Reagan would do? Is that why they finally released the hostages? No, no one's looking for where to give credit. We're glad our diplomats returned home safe. But another important thing happened during the Ayatollah's watch. He encouraged the Iranian people to grow the Persian race, to grow the Iranian race. And they did. They grew the population in Iran. They had lots of babies. And those babies are now more modernized. They are looking more, they want a better relationship with the West. They want a stronger economy. They want a better lifestyle. And there's a good opportunity here. It is realistically one of the greatest human gentrifications in the history of the world that happened in Iran. When the Ayatollah encourages people to grow their race, they grew their race, and those newborns are now in the range of 50 years old. Back when President Obama initiated the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, they were in their 40s. There was a movement, there was a belief that we could get Iran on board to be a productive part of the world. Uh, uh, they did not fulfill the agreement to its fullest, and always within the agreement was the president's option to abandon the agreement, whomever the president was, and that is what Donald Trump chose to do after he took office. He did not. I do not believe he did it for punitive reasons. I do think at times he wanted to overturn Barack Obama's policies just to say, look, we need to undo everything Barack Obama did. But he was in about his second year of his first term when he did abandon the JCPOA. Now we've had the actions of today. Iran is in trouble militarily. Their defense systems are down. This recent action Israel took, they had a lot of drones on the ready. I don't know where they were positioned, but they took out their air defense systems, and then they went in with their jets, and they took out a lot of Iran's important military. We went in with our B-2 bombers, um, and took out the three facilities we were always concerned about. They were underground facilities. We were really the only part. We were only the country in the world with the technology to do what we did. As I said, I am not knocking Donald Trump's decision. I'm not sure it was the greatest decision. I'm not a military person. I don't know. All I know is there's good reason for question and concern. How much we got done, uh, how much safer are we today? How long will it take Iran to rebuild its nuclear capabilities? I don't know that those questions are answered. And when we ask them, we're not asking them in order to belittle Donald Trump's decision or leadership. We are asking them for good reason. We need to know where we're at. We also need to know that bringing Iran to the table and not bringing Iran back to the table to get them what they really want, a lifting of sanctions, to get their economy growing again, to get the world to participate in their economy. And we also need to finally move forward with the decision to put together a Palestinian state and an international force that will protect the Palestinian people from Hamas and Hezbollah and other terrorist organizations that will go out of their way to terrorize these people and dismantle their country that they have been finally and have been waiting for long to have. There needs to be an international effort. It's going to take the world to get this done. But giving peace a chance is the right thing to do. And it's also the prudent thing to do. When we talk about DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, the acronym DOGE, it is a metaphor at best. If we are going to be a more efficient government, if we are good, we need to get out of the business of war. We need to get more and more in the business of peace and stop thinking that we can bomb people into compliance. It's not working. We're killing a lot of innocent people. We're getting ourselves killed, and the friction just keeps growing. And so, long story short, there's a lot going on. We also need to realize, again, from the point of a more efficient government, we need to take lessons from Ukraine. We have come to the realization that a lot less expensive drones and a lot less of expensive equipment can replace some of the very expensive equipment we're using for war today, including, and we need to start rethinking our entire military, not only rethinking our approach towards war, rethinking our approach towards peace, but we need to start rethinking how we retool our military with a lot less expensive equipment. That won't be easy for the simple reason that there are lawmakers all across the country that will not want to give up that will not want their contractors to give up those lucrative contracts to build these very expensive weapons, to build these Bradley tanks, to build these F-16 planes. They are not going to want to lose those contracts in their districts, to lose the employment, to lose the tax revenue, to lose the donations they are getting from these military contractors for their campaigns. So we as Americans need to stay informed. We can't just rely on red or blue. We have to rely on ourselves to stay informed, to understand what's going on in the world today and how we are at a precipice of change and how we can affect very positive change. Especially every American has a role in this. The greatest form of protest is voting. Often I just don't believe for a minute we as Democrats vote like we're supposed to. We don't show up for midterms. We don't show up for special elections. The only thing we really show up for is presidential elections, and we need to start showing up and voting more, more, more. If we don't like what's going on, and we also need to hold our leaders accountable. I have recently learned about a new political party. An attorney in Orlando is starting. John Morgan. If you're from Orlando, you know him. If you're not, you may not know him, but he's calling it the Capitalist Party. I have reached out to his office. I have reached out to his attorney in charge of putting this party together. And I've made the point of saying, join my podcast, John. And I've also made the point of saying, if you don't have time for my podcast, let me give you time. Let me be an integral part of your new party because I believe there's a lot we can do. We no longer need to just look at the the old school way of doing things. We need to look at some new school ways of governing, investing more in education, investing in our children. As the old saying goes, I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I certainly know who holds tomorrow. So that is my trip talk for today. You can like, subscribe, comment, share. You can also email me, and I can give you my Dropbox information and tell me you have created a trip talk. And we can create a whole new political movement. We don't have to just do it on social media. We can do it on this podcast, Political No Brainer. And I also encourage all new candidates to email me at politicalnobrainer@gmail.com and let me know what you're thinking. If you want to join the podcast and tell us what you're thinking. I've had great guests on the show. Some of the top-notch guests I've ever had. I've had Laura Lucra, the president of the Independent Center for Independent Candidates. I've had Temple Grandin on this show. She was incredible, an autistic scientist, an autistic studying animal behavior, uh, a professor, just an incredible guest. And I want you to be my guest. Email me, tell me what's on your mind, or email me and tell me you've set up your iPhone on a tripod, created a video, and did a trip talk. Send me an email. I'll send you a Dropbox link, and you can get the video to me, and I'll tell you if we're going to post it up or not. Keep it around 18 minutes, 20 minutes. I really think 18 minutes should be the limit. You can go as much as 20 minutes. Let me know what you're thinking. I look forward to hearing from you. Like, share, subscribe, comment. This is Coach Trippy. Peace and out. See you soon.